Welcome to the T2 Hubcast. Join T2 and guests as they discuss all things personal and professional development. The T2 Hubcast, brought to you by the People Performance People.
Welcome to the T2 Hubcast with me, Spencer Locker.
And me, Tracy Roberts.
Morning, Tracy. All right.
Morning.
All good?
Yep. Two coffees down. All good.
2 coffees down. Hey, it comes to something when you're measuring the quality of your day by the amount of coffees you have. So, yeah, because you know what? When we start talking about quality of days, how we feel in the office and things like that, we've been talking and it's very much, in certain places anyway, it's very much dependent on what sort of manager you have or what sort of leader you have.
Oh, yeah.
And you came up with a term when we were talking about this, and it tickled me. I must say, it really did tickle me.
Don't take much, mate, does it?
But yeah, so we've decided to do a little bit of a podcast, drop in the old podcast booth and do a T2 Hubcast. And what's it going to be about, Tracy?
It's going to be about seagull management.
Seagull management? What? Managing
seagulls.
Managing coast-based birds.
I thought we should take some more clients on, and as there's so many outside the window, I thought we could direct them to where they're supposed to be.
Right. Okay.
Development for seagulls.
Oh, seagull development.
No, not quite. It's essentially, we were talking about managerial styles, weren't we, or organisational styles?
Yeah.
And I was sort of explaining this couple of situations I'd been in and something we'd observed. And I said, it's a little bit like seagull management. And you said, what the hell does that mean? And I said, basically, it's when someone, usually the manager, flies in, drops a load of shit and flies out again. And the whole group just think, what the hell just happened? And how do I clean this up?
Yes, because initially I'm thinking to myself, you've got a manager like a seagull. What, he's going to kick the door in and nick me chips?
Well, funnily enough, that there is a little element of that as well.
Right.
If you take it to the seagull analogy, which, you think of what those creatures are like, initially you look at them, they're quite quiet and unassuming and, just sat there, but they've got a plan sometimes, haven't they? And it's usually to nick your chips. Yeah. So some seagull managers will fly in and just drop their crap everywhere. And obviously there's a massive cleanup operation afterwards. Some will actually fly in and hold back a bit, but they'll nick your chips, aka your ideas and your visions.
Right.
And sometimes not for a bad reason. They'll take a little bit of what you said and go away with it and kind of grow it. But some people do it negatively and take little bits of what maybe people will say in the business and then use it as their own ideas. So there is a little bit of a crossover between those little blighters down at Scarborough Harbour and, what we're talking about, really.
So these little critters where?
Scarborough Harbour.
I was going to say, that wasn't easy for you to say, was it?
No, not as a jock that lives in Hull. That definitely wasn't easy for me to say at all.
Yes, so it certainly sounds like, I wonder why we haven't had a seagull as a Bond villain yet, because they're evil.
Yeah. Imagine that, no, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
In your best seagull voice. So I you know what, I think everybody's been there, haven't they?
Yeah.
And when we start talking about like unconscious motivators, we know that some people can be in shadow. And when they're in shadow, sometimes they don't do the best things.
No, but even in best self, think about it. For someone who's creative, so in a creative environment, they are in best self in terms of how they are performing and what they're doing and their minds going and stuff. But their actions, because they're so creative and because they're so passionate, can create that seagull effect without even realizing it. Yeah,
and if they're thinking that they're in there and dropping the shit everywhere, and they think that it's going to make a lovely Jackson Pollock, it's all creative and it's all this, that, and the other. It's a really interesting point to make, or a relevant point to make, that just because the message transmitted is one thing, it doesn't necessarily that's the same message received. So everybody's sat there going, we're putting their umbrellas up because they don't want to get covered in seagull guano.
Yeah, and it does create that culture of, if the seagull comes in regularly, like almost like you say, putting the brolly up or actually shutting the door, or putting lead pellets down, whatever way you want to make a terrible coffee so they don't come in. Yeah. But you've almost got that feeling of impending doom. you know, so that person can have that effect on the office space, or even personally, you know, if someone's from a personal perspective, a Seagull manager to a degree, it's not Seagull management, but you will just come home and drop your crap all over your partner or your children or whatever way you look at it. And although your partner, your family, whoever's around you wants to support you, they are kind of tense.
Yeah.
And just waiting for that situation to happen. And it's because you don't have an outlet normally. So in a positive way, it's because you're creative, isn't it?
Yeah.
And in a creative environment, I should imagine that that's really more prevalent. People will come in and Seagull. But if there's a whole load of you Seagulling, if you do that in a blue sky thinking environment, you can almost sweep up a little bit of the crap from one side and think, right, let's focus on this bit, you know. But in a normal situation, well, it depends when you drop your shit as well, doesn't it? So if you are someone who likes to, and I've experienced this massively, someone come in and dropping their shit at 3:00 on a Friday on me and telling me it has to be done by Monday at 6 a.m, you know. And I think, well, that, you know, you're a conscious shitter.
Yes.
You come in and you know that that is literally going to ruin my weekend.
Yeah.
And that's different from someone who comes out of a meeting and is just full of ideas and comes in the office and still does the same thing, but people almost understand it differently. And it's about calling that person out because they probably don't realize, do they?
No.
But I used to do it. I used to be on the road 4 hours in a meeting, have the best meeting ever, but get frustrated because I'm a sort of person that if I'm in the car, I'm annoyed because I'm not doing anything. It's not important. Like this, I'm driving, but what could I be doing in that 4 hours? If I'm at the hairdresser's, I'm on my laptop. I get so irritated by doing nothing. So what do? The only thing I can do, I ring people. Right. So I'd come out of a meeting, I'd have loads of ideas and I'd be buzzing. And literally I have my hit list, my top 3 who I'd ring, and they'd be waiting for it. And sometimes it's for a squawk. So that's okay. You can have a squawk from time to time, can't you? Sometimes it's to literally roll that crap downhill and go, right, this is what I want doing because I've had this great idea. And I'm all the way home in my car talking to this person and didn't think for 1 minute when I hung the phone up sometimes, I've just literally done Seagull management on that person. So you have to, when you're someone who's quite, you know, full of ideas, you've got to be very aware that you do this. You don't realize you do it, but you do. So it is about managing that creativity time, isn't it? And the outcomes from that as well.
Yeah. And I suppose when we start talking about Seagull management, we could actually diversify ever so slightly because not everybody lives on the coast. So it might be, if you live on the coast, you've got Seagull management, but if you live inland, it might be pigeon management.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could maybe just call it the shitty bird effect or something like that. But yeah, it's essentially, it doesn't matter where you are, you know, you're going to get different variations. Some are bigger than others. Some are greedier than others.
Yeah.
Some of them are more vocal than others.
Sometimes you're the pigeon. Sometimes you're the statue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes you are the shitty.
Yeah.
Or sometimes you are the receiver of.
I mean, and you could have some eagles, let's be honest, that are working in your business. And can you imagine the crap that they drop? So
if we're going down this, I mean, I know it's nothing to do with birds, but we're training our puppy at the moment, and it's like very reward-based training. Yeah.
I'm a bit like that.
And I'm shoveling treats down it because that's what you do at the moment.
Yeah.
It's all this sort of stimulating those brain chemicals to make him feel good.
Yeah.
So all this, that, and the other. But I tell you what, I'm starting to put my back out now when I'm picking up his poo.
Can't keep up.
You can't keep up. Yeah.
You're like, give your butt a chance to catch up, lad. Yeah, I know what you mean.
So So it's really interesting when we start thinking about, sometimes you do it unconsciously or subconsciously.
Yeah.
Sometimes you are conscious about it. And if you are conscious about it, particularly after the fact, you're sort of thinking, right, okay, I've been a seagull or the pigeon or whatever shitty bird I've been, or whatever's relevant to my particular sort of geographical location.
Yeah.
I need to do something about this. I need to
not
necessarily damage limitation, but firstly, I need to start thinking about how I'm going to control my behaviour. But secondly, what am I going to do to make this right?
Yeah, and there's loads of ways to look at that, isn't there? If you're conscious that you're a shitter, and you will know that, as I'm saying this now, people will be listening saying, yeah, you know, especially if you're in, you know, a job where you're in charge of a group of people, particularly if you're creative, whatever way you look at it, it's about channeling your creativity, isn't it? So for me, it's, you know, you've got like steering the ship, and you've got the stuff that, you know, adds to that experience of steering the ship. So the stuff that adds, all the stuff that will grow a business, that is creativity. So sometimes it's a good idea just to channel that into sections of the week. So thinking, okay, I'm my most productive. Like I said to you the other day, I'm more productive between 3 and 5 in an afternoon for some reason, probably because I'm at optimum coffee levels. So I will make notes. But what I learned to do, because I was doing that and then I was firing it off to the people who could support with that initiative.
Yeah.
And actually, it was then 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night. Now, I know a lot of businesses have actually said to people, from now on, we don't send emails or requests after 6 p.m. as an example, which is a good way to look at it, isn't it? However, I am the type of person that generally, because I've got a good relationship with people I work with, I do speak to them out of the normal working hours. And it can sneak in and it becomes a WhatsApp or even something, a quick email. Oh, don't worry about this till tomorrow. But personalities will still go, I'll get that done tonight. I wouldn't want that in my inbox. So I think being conscious of your timings is really important, and actually maybe making a mental note of, right, I will use that creative time there. I will note take during that section, and then I will put a half an hour in the diary to speak to that person tomorrow. And then I will set out what I need doing and when, and I'll outline what are important and what aren't important. Or even better, have, I don't know, a creative hour every week with your team, or every month. A lot of people do blue sky thinking days, don't they? And then out of that normally comes 2 or 3 key things you're going to work on. And that's from the creative side. From an operational perspective, because that's where Seagull management really comes in, when there's a panic, or where there's good stuff going on. It's more about how that comes across to other people. So as you said, being really aware of, picking your timings for one, although you can't always do that in operational sort of circumstances, but actually channeling the action, if you like, after that. Because I think a lot of people then struggle when someone's seagulling everywhere to actually pick out the bits that are really important. And I think the way that you say that as a leader is important, isn't it? These are the things, I've had all these ideas, but ultimately it comes down to these 2 things that I need doing. So I think that's quite important as well. So yeah, I think it's about picking your moments and checking yourself. Like you say, like, I know I'm creative. I know I can't turn my brain off. And, choosing when that conversation is going to happen, picking your moments is definitely important, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think I'm speaking from personal experience. I used to have a boss who was a seagull pigeon, call it what you will, delete as applicable. But yeah, he was very much like that. Don't get me wrong, it came from a good place.
Yeah, definitely.
It came from a good place, but very much like that. And the thing with him was, because it came from a good place, and it was like a reaction rather than a response to this, whatever stimulus was in his head. He'd swoop in, drop his shit, swoop out again, and then sort of consider what he'd done, and felt the need to try and apologise. Right?
Yes.
To his crew, sort of turn around and go, look, I'm sorry about that. I had all these ideas. You know what I mean? However, for whatever reason, and I don't know why, he never actually apologised. What he did was he acknowledged what he'd done and then justified it.
Right.
So, yes, I'm aware that I did this. The reason why I did it was blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, the demand of this person.
Actually, it didn't mean anything.
Yeah.
It wasn't an apology, even though they may have felt like it was an apology. All it was an acknowledgement and a validation. And it's sort of, you know what? It didn't happen very often. Don't get me wrong. I don't want you to get the wrong impression. It didn't happen very often. But when it did happen, and I'm sat there with my arms folded, looking at him thinking, mate, that wasn't an apology.
No, and you're at that situation, it's really hard, isn't it? Because if you're, someone who's really driven by people and, doing good things, you will want to help that person. So even though you see what they're doing, you'll think, right, I'll get that done. And some bosses actually rely on coming to the right, bird bath, so to speak, and saying, right, I'm going to drop my shit here because these people have got my back and they're going to pick it up.
Has this turned into Spring Watch or what?
Oh, it's not posh Riddle, it's from the Umber. But yeah, they'll go to the right bird bath and they'll shit all over it because they know that people will just pick it up and they're passionate and they do share that creativity and that passion. But what the bosses don't see is that imploding feeling for people. They're maybe already sat there with 10 things on their list that they need to get done, and 5 of those things might be personal things. They just needed to focus their time and energy on getting that right. And I think what we've got to be careful as, if we do go into, being a seagull manager, is burnout for people. We've got to try and control that a bit, because you won't see as a leader always what's going on behind the scenes. So you will think that person's fully in control. I had this quite a few times where like people go, I can't believe your work rate is ridiculous, you're so quick. But what they don't see behind the scenes is it's because it's driven by, I know that person needs that information. So I wouldn't go to bed that night until that person had that information. And I also know that a lot of people I've worked with or for has used that to their advantage, because they can come to me at 8:00 on a night and go, look, I know we're off the clock officially, but I've got this meeting in the morning and you're the only person that can do this. So some seagulls will use a little bit of manipulation as well and go, look, you're the next biggest bird round here, let's go shit on some people together, and it creates a little bit. And as someone who wants to feel valued, you'll go, right, I've got this.
Yeah. I'm
going to keep eating chips with this person. If we keep going out for lunch every day, I'm going to progress, if you like. And who knows, I might get haddock next time, So it's being a bit aware of that as well, and calling people out on it, but in the right way.
Yeah. Yeah. The seagull and the cormorant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Off to the chipper on a Friday down Harry Ramsden's.
Yeah, and so it's really, really interesting. I mean, I know some people might have different names for it, but I think it's an interesting concept. I think it's relevant.
Yeah.
And I think that we've actually sort of addressed a few things there, haven't we?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, if you're listening right now and you're a seagull from time to time, it's okay.
Yeah.
We all do it, but it's about how you can maybe channel that to be a little bit better for your people and those around you. So if you're someone who seagulls as soon as you get home from work, think about that other person. Maybe take a moment to say, how was your day first? So, that active listening thing. So don't seek to kind of get everything off your chest straight away. Maybe just channel it a little bit better, so people around you've got an understanding. And if you're in the workplace and you're a seagull, think about ways that you can kind of control that a little bit more. Like I said, diary management, thinking about picking your moments with having those conversations, and actually create a situation where you can seagull when you want. So if there is a blue sky thinking Friday or something similar, then get it all out. But then you still have to channel it back to those main outcomes, don't you? So I think really there's loads of ways to still squawk and seagull a little bit, but control it for those around you. I think that's the most important. And I don't think it's actually healthy for the individual, is it? Because you've got a lot going on there. And actually what you really want to do is keep pushing forward, but still channeling in those little, snippets of wisdom and ideas, because obviously that's what builds growth and development.
Yeah.
So it is more about thinking of those around you as well, and the stimulus, isn't it?
Yes, certainly. Excellent. Well, I really enjoyed that chat. I consider myself educated.
Do you consider yourself a seagull, a pigeon, or an eagle?
Me? I'm probably kingfisher.
Okay. Oh, okay. That's interesting.
Just because I'm from Yorkshire.
Okay.
It's a sort of Yorkshire bird.
That's fair.
But budgie sometimes.
Well, we used to call them shite hawks when I was in the Navy. We never called them seagulls.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I'll consider myself a shite hawk from time to time.
Yes. So when we start talking about aquatic birds.
What we're talking about now.
Yeah. We'll get Bill Oddie in next time.
Yeah.
We'll try. I'm sure he's available.
We could maybe get sponsored by the RSPB.
For the next time we talk about seagull management.
Yeah.
Not when you're talking about lead shot. That's not. Don't do that, kids. By the way, don't do that.
No, we love animals and birds, and
we do. Excellent, Tracy Roberts. Thank you very much indeed for educating us.
You're very welcome.
Excellent. So that's the end of this T2 Hubcast, and we'll see you next time on the T2 Hubcast. Until then, bye bye now.